All right, we are live with the Combatcast. And before we get started on today's festivities, let's talk about our sponsor.
Yes, we'd like to thank our sponsor for the podcast, Game Up. They make a thirst-quenching adult beverage with a special blend of electrolytes. Helps keep you hydrated. Comes in 4 great flavors: fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape.
All right, it's only 110 calories per can, low carb. Get yourself some Game Up. And let's talk about what we got coming up.
All right, August 31st, we're going to be reviewing this week's fight card, UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Borralho. It is Labor Day weekend, so the UFC is taking a break. And then September 7th, we'll be back, UFC Fight Night, Burns versus Brady. Interesting matchup. 2 great grapplers, probably going to get a striking match then. And then September 14th is Riyadh Season Noche UFC, so...
Yeah.
We'll be at the Sphere.
Yeah, and let's just look before we get started today too. What do we think about Merab posting that cut there? Dana was pretty. I don't say Dana was pissed because he was asked about it, but he was not very kind about it. What did you think about all that?
Dana's point was that, well, actually, I think the person who asked the question made the point that Sean is a sniper and now you're presenting a target for him or whatever, which that makes sense. But also Merab's gonna make the fight. Like, don't worry about the fight getting canceled. But then Dana's worried about if the perception of the fight might get canceled, or if the commission sees it, they might cancel it. Less tickets. People don't want to buy those like $8,000 tickets if they don't know the main event's gonna be the main event. So it makes sense.
They stick to is like, I get it. Why even? I mean, I always think it's a little hardcore when you're calling your fighter stupid and dumb. But why put the fight in jeopardy? You know what I mean? And even if it's not in jeopardy, and I guess that's Merab, right? He's like, no, I die. But that's not how the athletic commissions view it, Merab. Yeah. You need to understand that. So they had to put it, it's a small cut, everything will be fine. But I think he was more annoyed that there's this compelling to just put stuff out there on social media sometimes. And he said boxing, he says, I slam boxing all the time, but if something happens in one of those camps, like, you don't hear shit about it.
Yeah, well, Dana complains about his fighters promoting themselves because they don't promote them, but he also wants to create more space on the internet to put slap fighting in front of our face. So if Merab's not posting stuff, we can't look at it, and we can look at slap fighting instead. So
there you go. All right, let's review UFC 305, and I am going to do the heavy lifting here today because Chevy actually didn't get to see this card. Hey, late night card, like all pay-per-views, but you're a little tired, and we both ended up finding ways to watch this, and they got me. But so why don't you just I'll let you introduce the fights, and I'll tell
you. I did get to watch the prelims, obviously, because they were on ESPN Plus. So shout out to Jack Jenkins.
Yeah.
Or remember he broke like 3 opponents' legs. Well, he destroyed Herbert Burns. Herbert Burns, to me, who am I? I shouldn't talk shit about fighters, obviously, but he seems more of just a jiu-jitsu guy and not really a fighter. He does the butt scoot. All he was doing was pulling guard, and he's done this before against other guys, not just guys that are destroying his legs. Yeah. But basically, he got finished because he wouldn't get up or couldn't get up off the ground. And then Mark Goddard called the fight, and then his brother had to carry him to the back. So I don't know if he's really tough enough to be in the UFC, but Jack Jenkins is a beast. Excited to watch him fight whenever. Junior Tafa and Walter Walker had some issues. I don't know if you saw that. So Walker, who is Johnny Walker's brother, was fighting Junior Tafa, Justin Tafa's brother. So Walker ended up getting Tafa in this like leg lock, and they were rolling, and Tafa like screamed out, and they stopped the fight.
Yes.
Which technically is a verbal tap if you scream out in the rules. So they stopped the fight, but there was a little bit of contention about it, and then Tafa was talking to Walter, and I guess they had issues beforehand, and Tafa slapped him in the face after the fight, and then Walker got on the mic and said that he has a weak bloodline, and he wants to fight Justin Tafa. So it was a whole thing.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I forgot about that. Wow, that's right. Yeah, very interesting. I remember he put his hands on him afterwards, and I thought that could be a big problem we've seen in the past, but looks like they didn't really. I haven't heard anything about him getting suspended or anything.
No. Yeah, nobody cares about those two guys. So let's move on to the main card. Li Jingliang versus Carlos Prates.
All right, Prates looked good here. Looked like a stud. Hits hard. His strikes were sharp, and the leech, was game. And I don't know if it's just he's getting older or he had been out for a while, or just that Prates is that good. But he was the better striker, finished him off in the second round. And I think if you're putting away a tough customer like the leech here, then you definitely have great potential. I'm going to give you some potential fights for people with Carlos. He's so still new. Like, that welterweight division is so strong when you just look at list of contenders. I'm just going to say for this guy, let's keep winning fights. I don't think we're ready for a top 15 yet, but he's definitely someone to watch out for.
Yeah, maybe put him in the middle of a pay-per-view or headline a fight night or something next.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Yeah. Tai Tuivasa versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik.
What we feared, this would end up being kind of a boring heavyweight fight that went to decision. Tai didn't really have any moments. I mean, every once in a while he might get a hope kind of shot in, but Rozenstruik just looked like the better striker here technically, which he thought he might. We thought Tai would be able to engage him. He was not. Rozenstruik was patient and looked sharp overall. I was actually have to say, as much as I love Tai, and I think this might be his 5th loss in a row, and he's heavyweight, but even 5 losses in a row, this might be it for Tai in the UFC right now. I have to say, as far as Rozenstruik goes, I was really happy with his performance. Like, he looked sharp, and I don't know. I'm looking at him, and maybe just a guy like Spivak next. Spivak just came off of a win, and let's see what those two can do against each other.
Yeah, I bet Spivak rolls him up pretty quickly if they fight. But also of note in this fight was there was a judge that was actually removed and relieved for the rest of the night because he gave Tai every round.
Right, which was wrong.
And yeah, the way I hear it, Tai lost every round. So he was taken off and not allowed to continue for the rest of the night. So that is unprecedented. Never seen that before. It's a good sign, though. We don't.
We're not to the Australian Athletic Commission.
Want to change judging? That's how you do it, right there. So
absolutely.
All right, let's move on to what I assume was fight of the night: Mateusz Gamrot versus Dan Hooker.
Let me ask you one right here. I have this listed right in front of me. Was it the fight of the night? I believe it was, and it was. Yes, it was. But Gamrot. I will say this before we get to this: really improved striking. You had talked about him maybe wrestling down Hooker and stuff like that, which he did, but he did hold his own with striking. He was the better wrestler, but Hooker, great takedown defense and good at getting himself back up. I was concerned that Gamrot was going to do enough to get a points victory at time, because I remember even after round 2, Hooker had him in trouble at the end of like almost each round, and DC had pointed out, despite the fact that he might be down 2 rounds, but he wasn't. He got the decision victory, and he looked real sharp. And now this is a guy, Dan Hooker, who put himself in a really good position with this win. I'm looking at him now, and I think whoever's available that's got a name, not just a top contender, but there's a couple names in front of him, guys like Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, and I think if they still want to keep fighting, Hooker's a logical opponent, whether it's a rematch with Poirier, or I don't think him and Gaethje have ever fought. I could be wrong about that.
No, that's a great fight.
Yeah, that's the fight I'd want to see. That or Michael Chandler, who I know is waiting forever for his Conor fight, but if he wants to give up on that.
Dan has gone on Twitter to try to snake the Conor fight from Chandler, in fact.
Smart.
So he was saying, you want to fight a guy who's on a 4-fight win streak and is super exciting, or you want to fight Chandler who lost 2 in a row.
Yeah.
I think his like only notable win lately is the TKO or the KO of Tony Ferguson, which was brutal, but also Tony Ferguson. Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to talk about Connor, but yeah, I'm happy for Dan Hooker. I did predict a very close victory that he would win on hearts and guts, and that's what it sounded like happened. So good for him. Always exciting. I think Gaethje should be next. That's what I want to see anyway. But yeah, Poirier, obviously, rematch would be very fun. That fight was...
I mean, any of those fights, would be a great name, and it's a great opportunity for Hooker at this point in his career. And I kind of want to see it for him. I really do. I think he's put his time in, and at this point where a lot of people could have thrown, he reminds me of Poirier a lot, where he could have kind of like given up and said, okay, I'm just going to be this guy. He just keeps improving, I think, too. And so good for him. Exciting fighter, keeps improving, and I look forward to his next fight.
Yeah, I think he lost like 3 or 4 in a row at one point, and to come back now and be on a 4-fight win streak or whatever is very, very hard to do at this level in the UFC. So props to Dan Hooker. Very impressed. Let's move on to the co-main event. Kai Kara France versus Steve Erceg. I did not predict this one correctly.
No. But I understood your point, but I just thought Kai Kara France, I really just liked his power going to this. And my thing is, too, with Steve Erceg was like, he came into UFC, he got a couple wins, he was kind of under the radar, and he went into a title opportunity, and he looked good doing it. But here's the thing, and I could be wrong about this, but to me, it's just there's a lot more film on you now. You went 5 rounds with the champ, and they have a chance people are going to be able to adapt to you. And whether that's what happened or not, it's hard to say because Kai Kara France is one of probably the heaviest hitters, at flyweight. And he caught him, laid him out round 1. So good for Kai Kara France. He's exciting. And I think, honestly, with this win, beating a guy who just challenged for the title and doing it in this fashion, you really can argue he deserves a shot at that title. And I think he'd be a fun fight for the flyweight title.
Yeah, it's a thin division, so anyone that can make an argument is probably going to get an opportunity. So shout out to Kai Kara France. I know, so he was off for a couple of years, and I heard it was due to he had some neurological issues, which obviously is very scary. So glad that he's back. It looked great getting a KO win over a heavy puncher. So shout out to him. Let's move on to the main event. Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya. This did not go exactly how I predicted.
So where I was watching the fight, I was having some issues with this fight too. It would go in and out. But
that darn ESPN Plus app,
Yeah. So, but I have to say, what was interesting, I thought it was a competitive fight for most of the fight, all 4 rounds. I thought DDP looked more tired to me at different times, which is normal. But
he always does, yeah.
Yeah, heavier breathing. I thought Izzy was looking sharp with his strikes, although, DDP was definitely connecting with some. But, it's funny. What did Dana White recently said? He fights like a white guy dances, right? Like he says he's very unorthodox and
hard to watch.
Yeah, you just don't think he's gonna really be able to pull off some of these victories he does, but he does. And I think that's a sign of a champion. Like he finds ways to win. He's constantly in there, he's going at you, forward pressure, and he's looking for different ways to win, whether it's on the feet or it's on the ground. And hey, he choked out Israel Adesanya, submitted him. That's never happened in MMA. And good for him. And we're talking about a guy in Adesanya who went up in light heavyweight and fought Blachowicz, all right? And he didn't win that fight, but he went all 5 rounds, okay? And his only other loss was a knockout loss to Bahara. And obviously he lost the decision to Strickland too. But he came back and beat Bahara. So point is, nobody's ever finished Adesanya like that. That was completely different. And to do it in round 4 is very impressive. So to me, hats off.
Also, when Izzy was looking the best he looked in the fight is what I heard,
Yeah.
He was looking great up until the time he got clipped, and then DDP got on him.
Yeah. I think the DDP has got to be Sean Strickland next right now. because Chimaev has not made any fights or any weight recently. If you can get that Chimaev-Whitaker fight going and Chimaev wins, obviously beating a guy like Whitaker, Chimaev being undefeated, he would be a clear-cut title contender at that point. But you got to get this guy actually in the octagon, so we'll see what happens. But right now, I would go with Sean Strickland.
Yeah, I think that's got to be next. Very tough ask for Chimaev anyway to fight Whitaker.
Yeah.
I think that fight's in like October, so they wouldn't be able to fight again until next year. But also, the guy can only fight, it seems like, in the Middle East. So I don't know how you're gonna have that guy be your champion. I mean, I guess champs can get away with only fighting once a year. This guy's only fighting once a year, maybe. So I don't know. I don't like the idea of being shoehorned into he can only fight in one region in the world, but I'm not the boss. So
yeah.
I also don't think he beats Whitaker, and I don't think he beats DDP either. So
yeah.
All right. Let's move on. Let's move on to this fight night that is coming up this weekend. Pretty light on the prelim side. So let's talk a little bit about a couple of the undercard fights we can just go over, and then we'll go over the co-main and main. This is a 6-fight main card that starts at 10 p.m. Eastern. We were talking about before we got online that this is reminiscent of the FS1 days where, fights were going until 2 o'clock in the morning, even though they're not pay-per-views. So don't know if your boys are going to make it through all the way to the end of this one, but the first couple fights are exciting. Edmen Shabazyan versus Gerald Meerschaert is leading off the main card. Shabazyan, I know he has a lot of fights, and he's had some ups and a lot of downs lately, but he's only 26 years old, so I don't think it's time to throw him away. Meerschaert has like 50 MMA fights, so he's definitely a tough ask. Obviously, tremendous grappling, but I think I'm going to pick Edmen. I think I still believe in him. I think he still has a lot of growing to do, so I'm going to pick him by KO in round 2. You got any thoughts on that one?
I hope so. I find it tough to say with Edmen Shabazyan because, like you said, he has a lot of ups and downs. But I've always liked him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll go with my heart. I'll just agree with you round 2. But I don't know. I'm more just hoping for him. I'd like to see him, get some wins and get back in the spotlight because I felt like he was rushed.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. All right, another fight we're looking forward to, Neil Magny versus Michael Morales. So we all know about Neil Magny, obviously. Michael Morales has been around in the UFC for a little while. Very exciting. He's 16-0, 11 KOs. He's a minus 900 favorite against the vet, Neil Magny. And I know Neil has a way about him to come out with decision wins in these kinds of scenarios. Because Morales is a striker first. He's not going to do a lot of jiu-jitsu, high-level jiu-jitsu, which is Neil's weakness. So normally I would say Magny survives, gets a decision win. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to get knocked out. I know he's not one to get finished, but Michael Morales is a monster. So I'm going to say around 3 KO for Michael Morales.
No problem with that one either, because I like the idea of some new blood again. There's a lot of old guard versus new guard type feel on this card here.
Yeah, changing of the guard for sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that in our co-main and main event, but one of the big things I noticed was the age difference in some of the fighters.
Well, let's get right to that. We're going to skip the middle of this card because I don't know any of these guys. They don't even have pictures on the UFC website, so... Let's go to the co-main event. Angela Hill versus Tabatha Ricci.
Angela Hill, 39 years old. She's 17-13. I like to joke she's the Mark Hunt of the women's division here. And what are they fighting at? Flyweight or bantam? Do you know?
I think it's flyweight.
Is it flyweight? Okay. So 17-13, 5 KOs, 1 sub, 11 decisions, 11-11 in the UFC. She's had Fight Night 4 times, Performance Night twice. She's a great fighter. She's just fought nothing but tough people since the early part of her career. I think she got into the UFC after like her 4th or 5th fight. So, she was on The Ultimate Fighter, and she just had a crazy career. But she's 39 years old now. Is she getting better? Maybe, but I mean, this is tough when you're getting older, especially in these lighter weight classes. Tabatha Ricci, 29 years old, 10-2, 1 KO, 3 subs, 6 decisions. She's 5-2 overall in the UFC. I wouldn't call her like a really exciting fighter. I expect this fight to go the distance. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to be a bit of an age discriminator this week, but I'm going to put my money on youth. I'm going to go with Tabatha Ricci by decision.
Yeah, I'm with you. Angela has tons of experience, but Tabatha has the better strength of schedule lately. Angela's best wins in the last couple of years are Lupi Godinez and Luana Pinheiro. Tabatha's are Pollyanna Vienna, Jessica Penne, Jillian Robertson, who I'm super high on right now. She's on a great run. And Tisha Pennington. Those are all super tough women. Yeah. So I think I'm going to pick Ricci, but I agree with you by decision.
Yep.
All right, main event. Jarod Cannonier versus Caio Borralho.
All right, Borralho, 31 years old. Again, we're going to talk about age in this one. 16-1-1, 5 KOs, 4 subs, 7 decisions. Performance of the night twice, 6-0 in the UFC. 15-fight win streak. His only loss was his 2nd fight in his career by decision. So this guy's never been finished or anything like that. Jarod Cannonier, what can you say? 17-7, 10 KOs, 2 subs, 5 decisions. Fight of the night twice. Most significant strikes landed in a UFC middleweight bout. I thought that was an interesting stat. One of 2 fighters, Conor McGregor being the only one, to have knockout victories in 3 different weight classes. All right. He is a fighter's fighter. He can throw down anybody. Coming off a loss where he was finished, I believe the first time he was ever finished at middleweight too, that I can recall. And now 40 years old, and he had an injury prior to that too. And we have him in here with a guy who's on a 15-fight win streak, who's a killer. I don't think the UFC is like, hey, let's get rid of Jarod Cannonier. But I do think when you're at a point, they're like, all right, you're 40 years old. You're going to have to see what you still got. And it's a very make or break situation. And this is an extremely tough fight for him right now, I think. And I love Jarod, but I'm not going to pick him here. Unfortunately, I think this is a bad fight for him at this point in his career. And I think he might get finished again. I'm going to go with Borralho about round. I'm going to go round 4. I think it'll be late, but I think we're going to get a TKO.
Yeah, Caio has fought tough guys, but Cannonier is still a big step up. Even at 40 years old, I think Jarod's a tough matchup for him. But Borralho is coming out of that fighting nerds camp, and those guys are on a different level right now. So I think they're going to be very well prepared.
Yeah.
I'm not super confident either way, but I'm with you. I'm leaning towards Borralho, but I think it'll be a decision. I think Jarod's still very tough, still very powerful, dangerous. And that fighting nerds camp is going to have Caio being very smart. So okay. I think he gets a decision win.
All right. I like it. All right. Why don't we tell people what we got coming up one more time?
All right. August 31st, we will be reviewing this fight card, UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Borralho on Labor Day weekend. And then September 7th, UFC Fight Night, Burns versus Brady. Good welterweight matchup. And then September 14th, it's Riyadh Season Noche UFC from the Sphere.
All right. So a lot of good fights coming up. Guys, enjoy the card this weekend, and we will be back here next week. Also, enjoy some Game Up.
If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Pick it up at Drink Game.